Ray. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world. Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr. Lance
Try
O'Neill.
to take over the world.
Yo, 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 what's up? It is Sunday night at 8:30. Do you know where your pogs are? I don't know where my other pog is, because my other pog is on the road somewhere between the East Coast and the West Coast and stuck in a hotel room. So he's like, you do the opening, but his sound is messed up, so I didn't hear him say it. That's why there was that little pause. So we have a guest tonight, and I know we're going to bring our guest in. Charley Johnson is his name, and we're going to have a good discussion with him. And if you hang around, we're going to go about 45 minutes or so. And if you want to hang around and find out why KJ has a smooth face and his mom loves him more today because he looks more like his dad, you'll have to hang around for later. So there's the teaser on that. So KJ, before you bring Charley in, anything you want to, your week or anything you want to bring up?
I ain't laughing at the intro, man. Yo, let's get it going, man. All right, let's go. All right, we got Mr. Charley Johnson, Chief Conscious Officer, over 20 years of business experience on the show today. I know my audio is a little warped, so I will be taking the tail. I'll be pulling up the rear, and Chappie's going to take the lead. I do have a couple of questions, though, so just bear with me. But Mr. Johnson, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience, man, and we'll get it rocking.
Born and raised in Utah. Wasn't Mormon. Utah is a very religious state. We weren't atheist. We weren't Mormon. We weren't Catholic. We weren't Muslim. We weren't Buddhist. We had nothing. We were not religious. We weren't spiritual. Kind of like this white wall behind me. We were just this blank slate. Very unique parents for that reason. Didn't do well around kids my age. Got into business very early on when I was offered a job at 16 or 17. As soon as I got around adults, I started to thrive. Really enjoyed the business, loved being around executives, loved being around the business, loved being like the dumbest person in the room. I loved asking questions, absorbing everything. Did okay with that business and flew 2 million miles during. Actually, hold on a sec. How much do you want to know in this? Do we want to keep going on with the podcast? You want me to dump the whole stuff at the front?
Sure. Just keep going. We'll ask
However you want to ride it.
Yeah.
All right. So flew 2 million miles with that business. Grew that with a partner of mine after the CEO had passed away very unexpectedly. After the 2 million miles flying, I developed a fear of flying. And it had nothing to do with the plane. The universe stepped in and said, we need you out of this business. I was very comfortable. There was a lot of money. There was 260 employees. We only lost one employee. She was pregnant. She didn't need to come back to work because of her husband. Great culture, great business. It was everything I'd ever wanted as a kid. And I had to leave. It forced me to. It got to the point where I was the face, the name, the sales, the marketing. So I was out front. The fact that I couldn't get on a plane, it just got to the point I was so miserable that I left the business. A month later, I was in Europe. So it had nothing to do with the fear of flying. There was just something in the universe that needed me to out of that business. During that time with the for-profit industry, I thought if I'm going to develop this fear of flying and it's going to push me out, then I need to go the polar opposite and jump onto the nonprofit. So I took over the Pay It Forward Foundation, the famous one with the book and the movie, traveled the world, again, on a lot of planes, 130 countries, tens of millions of people involved. That was fun. That was my egoic way of trying to save the world through random acts of kindness. During that time, though, the reason I told you about Utah and having a very neutral background is for this reason. During that time with Pay It Forward, I was doing what most people do in their early 30s, self-development. I was looking for coaches. Every single one I'd crossed paths with said they couldn't help me. So I was seeing all my friends, all these business associates, everyone was getting helped. And these individuals were looking at me saying, I can't help you. I have no clue how to answer your questions. Luckily, one of them was egoic, had less of an ego and said, I can't help you, but I think what you need is a teacher. So in my mind, because I had no religious or spiritual background, I asked, I said, do you want me to go back to college? What are you talking about, a teacher? She said, a spiritual teacher. I said, okay. Do you know one? She said, I have no clue. Good luck. Okay, great. Perfect. Again, the universe stepped in. I was in the sauna at the local gym, sitting down, an 85-year-old man. I had clothes on, as I do in this podcast. He was ass naked, as 85-year-old men do. I was sitting, he was standing. So just take a guess where my eye level was at. He walked right up to me and said, "I feel like I've known you from a past life." Huh. I said, first of all, get your what out of my face. Second of all, what do you mean by a past life? That was the thing that broke the dam. I had no clue what the hell that meant, but that triggered something in me. He taught me about books. He taught me about meditation. He taught me about everything he wanted to teach me, because he was a typical Utah. He could not talk to anyone in his family about this shit. No one. Everyone would have just ostracized him, kicked him out of the church. He loved being around me, and I loved being around him. He sent me to his meditation teacher, learned for about 4 weeks. After that, I knew there was more. I don't know why I was asking that question, but I knew there was more. And I said, what else can I do? He said, well, there's this individual that I haven't sent someone to in about a decade, and you don't mess with this guy. Most people don't want to meet with this guy. He's just a unique guy. I said, I'll talk to him. He's like, well, you can't waste his time. I was like, do you think I'm going to waste his time? Like, holy shit, man, just put me in front of him. I had a picture of Steve Jobs on my phone, because this was around 2013 when he was a big deal, and the Walter Isaacson book, and everyone was talking about him, the movies and everything. When I crossed paths with this individual and I walked up to his house for the first time, he opened the door. He looked just like him. So again, the universe, it had nothing to do with Steve Jobs. He had the same glasses, the same buzz head, the same light beard, the same face, everything. So I looked at him. Again, no frame of reference, spirituality or religion. I said, I don't know why I'm saying this, but whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do. For the next many years, I sat by his side. I read everything he told me to read. I meditated. I did everything he told me to do. He was a teacher in a different sense. And this is why the chief consciousness officer and all this stuff that we're going to talk about later came about. He was the teacher that stripped it all away. He had me read knowledge, not to fill my already overwhelmed mind like everyone else is on the planet. He wanted me to get to the point where I finally understood that every single God, every religion, every political side, every conflict, every division, anything that causes a conflict and division on this planet, anything that says I'm right, you're wrong, all of that shit, it's all coming from the same source. I asked him for truth, not a relative truth, not my Catholic truth, not my Republican truth, not this truth. I wanted truth. I wanted to understand where it came from. Kind of like the question of what's better, heads or tails of the coin. Most intelligent people would say, well, it's the same. No shit. So where did the coin come from? Because we're continuously as human beings choosing sides, and that never made sense to me. So this is where the neutrality comes. This is where the not choosing sides comes from. This is where I get a lot of individuals who don't know if I'm for them or against them. So they just kind of turn and walk away because they can't understand in their mind neutrality. It just like scares the shit out of them. So he is a very powerful individual. He stripped it all away just for the hell of it. He can levitate. He can see everything that's going on in you. He knows all your thoughts. He can tell anyone where they need to go into the hospital, fix any type of anything. He just scares the shit out of people. And as this planet continues on this path, that mythical, magical shit that I just said is going to be very normal. So how about that for an intro?
That is one hell of an intro.
Beautiful.
I have so many questions.
Good. That's the reason. Come on.
All right.
Let me start
Tabby,
with the
you go
silly
first.
ones. Yeah, let me start with the silly ones. What part of Utah are you from?
Salt Lake City.
What high school did you go to?
Oh God, Cottonwood. Why, you from Utah too?
I went to Skyline.
At what year?
91.
Okay, I graduated in 98.
Okay, so did you play baseball?
I did.
I probably umpired one of your games then.
Oh, you were that son of a bitch that called me out. Okay, I got it.
Oh yeah, that was me. I don't remember. Were you there the year the Cottonwood coach either got fired or took all the money from the fundraising and took all the there was a year the guy who was fundraising, he took all the funds and took off. He was the head coach, got fired. He took all of the banners and everything down. And
oh my God, no, I did not remember that.
Okay.
That was not my year. That was not my year. Wasn't my coach.
That's the Cottonwood story I remember. So, now, so I am LDS, and I'm an Army chaplain, and so it's interesting to hear you say that, because for me, I'm one of those guys as an Army chaplain who's more than happy to help anybody find whatever religion, faith, spirituality. I don't do the judgmental thing, because as an Army chaplain, my job is to say, how can I help you get where I get that vibe? And I've seen the judgmental on both sides, being LDS outside of Utah towards me, and I've seen judgmental in Salt Lake going, like my late brother-in-law, he grew up non-LDS, and he would have LDS families say, hey, you can't play with Frank because he's not LDS. And that just blew my mind, because it's like,
crazy, huh?
We're supposed to be accepting. So, yeah. So it's really interesting to hear your background. And I have a very clear idea of the neighborhood and area you grew up in. So I can see how that's awesome. Would be a challenge and would be very forming.
That's awesome. That is very cool, man. Interesting. Such a small world.
Yeah. Gotta get to it. So, all right. You spoke about neutrality, and that's kind of one of those things where it's that I guess it's that star that everybody tries to reach, right? You hear it all the time in media and politics and everything. Everyone wants to be neutral. How were you able to achieve this, or how is it even possible? Like, everything in the world that we know about is based off of bias. So how difficult was that process?
Well, so LeBron James knew he was going to be really good at basketball, right? Leo Messi. We have certain things. There's mathematicians love math. Scientists love science. Basketball players love basketball, right? Everyone's got this certain unique talent that kind of comes easy to them. Mine took about 35 years to understand, but because of my background, because of my parents, like I've never heard of a story like that. We didn't go to church. We weren't for it. We weren't against it. It's just something we did not talk about. Like the Mormon thing that we're talking about. It didn't even translate to me. It didn't matter if we were or we weren't, right? It really didn't matter. To cross paths with an individual like I did with my teacher, to have him strip away all of that bias and the conditioning, which was very minimal in the first place because of how I was raised, because of my incarnation with this life, it is very difficult. But the other thing that really helps with that is when you're starting to learn from a teacher like that, you start to understand consciousness. Everything's consciousness. Everything physical and non-physical is consciousness. It is fundamental to our reality, to our experience. Understanding that, and that's a big thing with this position. That's why we're doing so many podcasts. That's why we want to bring it into business. Understanding consciousness, but also understanding the mind. The mind is, like you said, bias. The mind is a divided tool. The mind only knows this or that, right or wrong, Catholic or atheist, Republican or Democrat. It only knows sides. It will never be 100% sure about anything. We can talk about it. We can talk about in our bones, we just feel 100% this is the way. But the person you think is crazy also feels it in their bones. This is 100% the way, right? We can go into the semantics of neutrality. We can go into the semantics of all of these discussions that so many podcasts have and so many people argue about. My question always to this is, though, and I like to go a little bit deeper. We've been doing this since the beginning of humanity. We truly believe at some point, one side's going to win, the other side's going to be okay with it, and we're all just going to go off into a utopic future, and we're just going to move on. Never. It's never happened. It's never happened. Einstein, the whole Einstein quote, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is the definition of insanity. Yet we continue to do it time and time again. Now, to the code here, to the best chaplain in the world, there are some unique individuals that are non-judgmental. There are some unique individuals that don't care if you're Mormon or Catholic or atheist or Republican or Democrat or anything, right? But just look at the world. The vast majority, the division and conflict that's created on this planet is because of that, because my God's better than your God, because Republican and Democrat, I'm Trump, I'm Biden, and all this stuff. Again, it's just the way it is, but I want to start to bring awareness to this. I want to start to bring awareness to how the mind works, and I want to start to bring awareness to, if we do expand our awareness, how we can minimize the division and conflict. So the neutrality, there are a small group of individuals there in the middle, but no one pays attention to them, because the first thing everyone wants to know is, Are you for me or are you against me? Do you believe what I believe, or are we going to argue? Right? When someone's neutral, I'm telling you, I can't begin to tell you how many times someone asks me who I'm for, and I'm like, no, I'm not for them. Oh, you're a Biden. Yeah, no, I'm a Trump. Oh, you're like my son. You're anarchist. No, I'm not that either. And they will just stare at me. Their brain freezes like a computer freezes, and they'll just turn and walk away. We don't understand neutrality. We don't know how to deal with it. But there are people out there that are unbiased and unconditioned.
Well, and the way the current argument is, hey, do you like bananas? Well, yeah, I love bananas. Well, what have you got against apples? I didn't say anything about apples. I like apples too. Oh, but oranges are the best. Oh, wait, okay. So to me, as a chaplain, as a person, I'm always trying to look for the win-wins, and I think that's where the neutrality comes. Is if we can come to a solution, and KJ and I are very political. That's what we do on this. That's why we both kind of we kind of raised our eyebrows. But at the same time, KJ and I are in a position where he leans a little bit left. I am a pretty strong conservative, but at the same time, there's no judgment going on. We both just want what is best overall, and if we can find that neutral where everybody's happy. And the one thing you really said that I think is the most interesting is nobody listens to the people in the middle, because it's everybody on the squeaky wheel on the two sides that gets all the attention, when it's not justified. But that's how we react, and the media reacts, and how the world kind of is.
Well, and to your point. Now, so the main point of Chief Conscious Officer, whether it's a political podcast or a business podcast, right, trying to bring out the burnout, the retention, the division and conflict within the organization. So it doesn't matter which one. When we're having these discussions like this, every time I hear it, just like you said, someone will say, I'm on the left, I'm on the right, I'm Catholic, I'm atheist, whatever it is. Every time someone talks to me, they say, I want to leave the world better for my kids. I want to leave this planet better. I to each their own, right? We're all talking in a very nice way right now in a podcast, right? We always say that we love our kids. We don't care what the other side thinks, and that's perfectly fine. The atheist says that, the Catholic says that, the Republican says that, the Democrat says that. My question is, why is the world so divided and conflicted then? Because like the Men in Black, remember when they're sitting on the park bench and Will Smith's talking to Tommy Lee Jones, he's like, as individuals, we're fine. As a group, we're a disaster. Right? So when we're individuals with the podcast and we're putting our best foot forward, and maybe we're just on a first date, right? You're gonna be a damn prince. As time goes on, we kind of let the world see who we are. But I always hear that. I hear the good stories. I hear how kind people are, and I know everyone's not lying to me. I know they're not lying to me. But we, again, have been doing this since the beginning of humanity. The world's never been so divided and conflicted, right? We've got 10,000 books on happiness. We've never been so unhappy. We've never spent more money on obesity. We've never been so fat. We've never spent more money on burnout, retention rate, all this business shit, conscious capitalism, conscious leadership, conscious management. And we've never been so divided and conflicted within the organization. So what am I missing? We got 20 years of wellness programs where we're stuffing meditation and Tai Chi and yoga down the company's gullet. And yet the company's got more burnout rate. The company's more divided, conflicted than ever between executives and employees. Something's missing, because we're continuously talking about the heads and tails of the coin. And the head says, I love my family. I don't care what tails does. Just let them be. Tails says the same thing, just like you just said a second ago. And I agree with you. And I know you're not lying. I know you're a kind person. I know KJ's a kind person. But why is there still so much division and conflict? Why is there so much that happens outside of that comment, which everyone says? Why is there still so much division and conflict? We've got to get to a deeper understanding of consciousness.
So let me ask you a question here, and hopefully I switched my headphone audio. Is that better? Okay. So I think we've always had the conflict, and one of the questions I would have is, has it gotten worse because of right now what we're doing? Not this podcast, but the social media, the access to instant information, the loss of of critical thinking, the lack of wisdom. To me, and this is the difference as far as how I've kind of always defined it, is intelligence is the ability to learn something. Everybody has intelligence. It doesn't matter really who they are. But wisdom is when you're able to say, hey, I just learned something new. And instead of saying, I know it, like a book, now I know this. Actually, what you've done is you've opened the door to the new library and walk in and go, everything behind this book, wow, look at everything I didn't know. And that wisdom has just evaporated. People are going, no, I know the book and I can fact check instantly and you're wrong and I'm right. And I wonder how much that has to contribute with all the positives that have come with the technological advances and the access to information. Our wisdom has I don't want to say bottomed out, but it's definitely taken a hit.
Completely agree. We I hope that we at some point in the very near future are incredibly embarrassed with the last 15 to 20 years of how we treated social media. Letting the world know stuff we have that most of the world doesn't. Taking pictures of our food, selfies, shit like that. It's embarrassing. And most adults will do it. I just, yeah.
Well, and that
just,
goes to how,
Hold on.
I can't do it.
yeah, that goes to how many people when in this country specifically that have never gone outside of this country, and they talk about the poor in this country. And you say, do you realize that the poor in this country are still the 1% of the world? Like people that are truly poor would murder to get here and be poor in America. So let's be realistic about what poor actually means.
Yep. Agreed.
This question. So, do you think consciousness can evolve without conflict, or is disruption kind of like a necessary part of expanding awareness? Where do you see yourself in that realm?
It could be both. It's both. We live in a dualistic world. We live in a divided time. We live with a tool that's divided. So all of these questions are going to be at the level of the mind. Everything we discuss is at the level of the mind. So it's always going to be both. And a great teacher once said the spiritual or human maturity of an individual is their okayness with contradiction. So the point being here is consciousness. What is consciousness? For your listeners, let's get to that, because the big thing we're doing is we're bringing it into politics, we're bringing it into business. The first question everyone has is, what is consciousness? The best metaphor is this wise fish swimming through the ocean, swims by two young fish and says, hey boys, how's the water? The two young fish look at each other and say, what's water? That's consciousness. Us three doing this podcast live right now, we're swimming in it. Your listeners are swimming in it. The planet's swimming in it. The Earth's swimming in it. The universe is swimming in it. The galaxies, the stars, the animals, the plants, everything physical and non-physical. That is the material. That's the word. That's the construct we've given everything physical and non-physical in this world. Okay. So to take it one step further, people mistakenly believe consciousness is conscious. Totally different things. Consciousness is a noun. Physical. Everything. Right? Everything physical, non-physical. Conscious is a verb. Conscious, all three of us are conscious. Touch, taste, feel. We were given those abilities. We had nothing to do with that. But we can see, we can smell, we can taste, we can touch, we can do all of that. If I get knocked in the head, I'm unconscious. I'm conscious because I'm aware. Awareness is a totally different subject here, but I don't want to get into all the minutiae of that. Consciousness is everything physical and non-physical. It's pure. It birthed everything that we know in this realm, physical and non-physical, okay? We, with the tool we've been given that only knows either or, right or wrong, Catholic or atheist, against me, for me, bias, conditioning, how we were raised, what we were taught, what our parents told us, what our teachers told us, that was divided because of the tool inside our head. Because you take, as the best chaplain in the world would put it, you take someone from Utah, born to a super Mormon family, but on day one, they're adopted by a Japanese family. That kid's Buddhist and he speaks fluent Japanese. You take someone from the Middle East, born to a Muslim family, day one, adopted by someone in Texas. They'd be perfect. They'd have the yeehaw drawl and they would be speaking perfect English and they'd be Baptist. Those are the kind of metaphors and examples I like to talk about rather than the semantics of what's right or wrong. Let's just the simple stuff of how conditioned and biased we are, right? That condition and bias you asked about 10 minutes ago is simply because of how we were raised and what we were raised around, what we were taught and who taught us. Like that to me is the heads and tails of the coin. And that's the only thing we pay attention to. My question always is, where did the coin come from? Consciousness. Once more people start to understand consciousness, that they are consciousness, they have access to consciousness more than just their mind, and they can tap into it, it changes everything. It expands their awareness from here to here.
Do you believe like institutions like religion, government, and capitalism are capable of becoming conscious? Or you think we have to do a complete reawakening to get to that level?
No. No. We can take it to a different level. To complete, the individuals that have left capitalism and the government, they hate the government and they hate Jesus because Catholic let them down. Now they're atheists. All those individuals that just think they need to just bring everything crashing down. That's the heads to the tails of the coin. All the religious people, and then they become spiritual and they think spirituality is better. That's the heads of the tails of the coin. The conversation or the topic that's never in conversations is levels of consciousness. Think about it like a grade, right? The vast majority of this planet's level of consciousness is around 3rd, 4th grade. Now, I don't say that insultingly because what you said earlier, the best chaplain in the world, it's not about intelligence. You can have two 170 IQ Harvard grad individuals completely at each other's throat because one's Republican, one's Democrat. That's a lack of clarity. That's an elementary level of clarity. Just all of that division and conflict because they're not seeing things clearly. What we can do is we can bring the awareness of what consciousness is. Kind of like the 4-minute mile. Completely impossible. The guy ran it. Now thousands of people can do it. Once we plant the seed of consciousness in the individual within politics, that want to be bipartisan and neutral, or business where the spread between executives and employees are just spreading, right? Just bring consciousness to them. It removes division and conflict. It bridges the gap. It gives everyone access at 2nd grade, 3rd grade, junior high, high school, college, PhD level. It allows them to go from 3rd grade to 4th or 5th grade. And my question to that comment is, if I'm a CEO, do I want 3rd graders as my employees or 5th graders? They're always going to say 5th. A little bit older, a little bit smarter, a little bit better with life, a little bit more self-sustaining. In government, do you want someone in 3rd or 5th? Right? We can raise everyone's level of consciousness a little bit within this realm, within this time we've got in this body. That shift is a massive, massive shift planetarily. Massive.
So my question is this, and I think it's an interesting question because I'm going to ask it. The nature versus nurture question, because one of the things, for in school, I had to take multiculturalism. And one of the things they said was, you're a white male. And so if you're counseling with a black female from the South, you're going to have to look at her and you're going to have to talk to her differently because of how she was raised. And I looked at that and I said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because that's assuming all black women from the South are monolithic in the same thing. And so my argument was, my older brother and I were both raised basically in the same house, definitely with the same parents, in the same schools, a lot of the same teachers, some of the same friends, and yet he is a far left expat living in Germany who thinks Trump is the Antichrist, and crystals protect his kids. And I'm a militaristic chaplain, conservative, LDS. And so I think our nurture, in my opinion, was a lot. My brother will say it was very different, but I don't agree with that. I think the nurture was pretty close. So how much of the consciousness and the ability to change comes from our worldview, and what is cemented and what is not cemented by that worldview?
So the nature versus nurture is like the heads and tails of the coin. Someone like you would say what you said, and it was just nature, right? You've got those two. That's just how you and your brother were built. I would agree with that. And then you've got someone who comes up in an abusive household, right? And there would be a lot of nurture in that. It would scar the kid. Maybe the mom was terrible to the daughter. Maybe the father was terrible to the son. That little nurture thing, whatever they experienced, they would talk the polar opposite of you. And I would agree with that. Like I said, the maturity of the individuals is their okayness with contradiction. What the problem we've done since the beginning of humanity is when we ask a very intelligent question like that, we pick a side. What I'm saying is, if there's more people to understand this conversation and answer it just with a little bit more depth and a little bit more understanding, they would say both. What's wrong with both? It depends on how the individual came up. It depends on their own experience. It depends on how they believe in nature versus nurture, all of that, right? But all of these questions are continuously at the level of the mind. The level of the mind wants to know which one you choose. When someone says both, everyone's like, what do you mean? Both. What's wrong with both? Right? Like I said, in your example, complete nature. You guys were raised by the same parents at the same time, and you guys are complete polar opposite, right? Our two boys, 14 and 11. Their mom's the best mom in the world, but they are two drastically different individuals. There's nothing on God's green earth that she can do to make one like the other. Nothing. But in a different experience or a different time or a different example, nurture would be something that really impacted an individual.
And I think for my question is not to say it has to be one or the other, because I do think there's obviously, it's both for sure. I mean, just because, somebody is raised in an extremely abusive household and really has had the worst of what humanity can be, they can still have, there are examples of people who've pulled themselves out of that and have reached the highest highs. And just the same way, you have people that are raised, like in America right now, I think one of the biggest things you see a pattern is very entitled college-age kids that have had everything given to them turn around and say how unfair the world is. And you're sitting there going, do you not see like what you have and the benefits you have? And so it's almost looking for conflict. So that's where I kind of wonder, and that's where I say, I think worldview really comes into play. Because it is how you perceive that, as you were talking to that consciousness. My consciousness is different from anybody else's. And I truly believe we are, to use today's parlance, I'm player one and everybody else is an NPC. You two right now, you're both NPCs. Because KJ might be a higher level NPC because we built that relationship, but I can't get into KJ's mind. I can never truly understand what is in KJ's mind. We've known each other for 10 years, and every day truly would be a mystery for me to say, what is KJ thinking? Who is he really? I have a vague understanding, but we try to have this idea of like, I can understand everybody else. Most of us can't even understand ourselves. So instead of going out and saying, oh, you're this, you're that, the other, for me, I'm kind of like, I think this is what I think. I think this is what I believe. I think I'm right. But hey, if I'm not, I'm more than happy to listen and help me out. Tell me where I'm wrong so I can get better. And unfortunately, I don't think that is the default for most people.
No, it's not. Absolutely not.
I got two questions that I've been kind of mulling over. So if, let's just say the world were to adapt the philosophy of higher consciousness overnight, what do you think the first institution or cultural norm will be the first one to fall?
Nothing's going to fall. These hypotheticals, it's not possible. 8 billion people with their, this physical body and the nervous systems we've been giving. Let's put it this way, let's change it. Let's take an 8-year-old and put him into high school. Hey, dude, go get a girlfriend and learn how to drive. That kid's getting his ass kicked, right? That's what I'm talking about, levels of consciousness. So if all 8 billion people took on higher consciousness, what that means, and that's what the consciousness is doing on this planet, that's why there's so much chaos and division right now. Consciousness is raising. It's 8 billion people. It's taking 8 billion people with it. So everyone, in a sense, is adapting to higher consciousness. But a second grader is adapting to third grade. A sixth grader may be adapting into moving into junior high. Someone in junior high may be adapting and going into high school, right? Just like a 12-year-old naturally turning 13, or an 8-year-old understanding Santa, and then maybe by 9 or 10, they wonder if it's their parents. It's a subtle shift. Not everyone's going to the top of the mountain. Like I said, you can't put an 8-year-old in 10th grade and tell him to go drive a car. The world will be a disaster. The kid's going to kill himself. The universe understands that. That's the same universe that created all three of us out of a single cell inside of a woman's body. If we want to talk about magical shit, that to me is the most insane thing in the world, that we've got a body, physical organs, consciousness. We're saying, we're talking to each other. We got a laptop, there's podcasts and everything from a single cell inside a woman's body. But just because 8 billion people did it, we just take it for granted. The whole planet is awakening. But the misnomer of everyone saying awakening, they think everyone's going to the top of the mountain like the yogi meditating in the Himalayas, and it's going to be all one, and everyone's going to wear loose-fitting white clothing and wear mala beads, and they're going to talk quietly, and everyone's going to be love. Bullshit. It's not going to happen. What we can do, and what the universe knows it can do, is it can take a third grader to fourth or fifth. That subtle shift changes a business, it changes politics, it changes a spouse, it changes a relationship, it changes kids, changes adults. That's what's happening naturally. And just more, so we can bring it more aware to the business, we can bring it more aware to the religion, we can bring awareness to it at a very simple understanding. So when people start to understand it a little bit more, it just changes their awareness. It takes them again from here to here. Everything they know in the world is in this little blinders. When they, even with this slight expansion, they got access to more knowledge, more information, more solutions, more questions, different this, different books, expands everything. That's just the way natural, the universe naturally does it.
There's a book by Paulo Coelho called The Alchemist, which you could take this and expand it, because the story is a little shepherd boy who has a dream, and the dream is that he'll find this treasure in the pyramids, and he's from southern Spain, doesn't know what the pyramids are, but he has this dream. And as he follows his path, the recurring theme is anyone who is following their dreams, the universe conspires to assist them. And it is such a it's a short book. I mean, 5th, 6th graders can read this. And to me, it's one of the most profound non-scriptural books that there is. I actually sent him a copy and said, will you sign this? And gave it to my wife as a wedding present 25 years ago. And she still hasn't read it. But to me, it's very much along those lines. If we look at things, and to me, as humans, we ignore, and I'm going to go religious here for a second. We ignore the fact that there is such a thing as truth with a capital T. And when you recognize truth with a capital T, if you don't follow that, that's your own lacking. That's your choices, and that's where we fall in, and that's where we fail. If we're always trying to reach that truth with a capital T, whatever that is, and I'm not going to judge anybody else, but to me, I think we all have that same truth. That's where we progress, and that's what you're talking about, going from 3rd grade to 4th grade to 5th grade, is when we are in pursuit of that ultimate truth. That's where we grow, and that's where we find value. And part of that wisdom is understanding that everybody is on their own journey and everybody's on their own path. And you do look at a lot of the spiritual ideas, and I think most of them from Christ to Buddha to all the way through is, hey, we are all just trying to do our best, and that's all we can do. We are all going to fail, and if we don't allow for other people their failures, then that's just worse on us, because I'm not perfect. I'm never going to make anybody else perfect. My kids aren't perfect. And my goodness, they'll tell me I'm not perfect every day. And as we judge other people for their imperfections, it goes back to the Christian of, you see the splinter in your friend's eye, but not the mote in your own eye. We're so quick to see other people's problems, but we don't understand that we're limited and we're full of errors and we have problems of ourselves. But we're so quick to say, but you're wrong.
Yeah. I mean, and
So,
what to my point 20 minutes ago, you're a Mormon chaplain. A Muslim would say the same thing. A Catholic would say the same thing, right? A Buddhist would say the same thing. A Hindu would say the same thing, right? And I know you're not lying to me. I know you're genuine in that comment. So what's going on in the world? Why is there so much division and conflict? Why are we fighting over gods? Why is every Republican at each other's Democrats' throat? Why is half the country hating? It's continuous. We continue to say the same shit, and what you're saying is correct. It's intelligent. It's heartfelt. It's right. I know you mean it. I know it's truth. Why is the world so divided and conflicted?
Because we're selfish. We're selfish. I think that's what it is. We're selfish.
My point being, we've spent all of humanity here. Always here. Mental toughness, mental crisis, mental health, mental this, self-development, train like a Navy SEAL, mental. This is a tool that only knows division. It only knows division. It uses us. You go deep into consciousness. You understand the mind came from consciousness. You tap into consciousness. You are consciousness. Every piece of knowledge you've ever understood came from consciousness. You use the mind rather than the mind using you. You understand it's divided. You understand that your politics are the same as the side that you think is ruining the world. You understand that the comment that just came out of Lance's mouth is the same comment that comes out of the Muslim and the Hindu and the Buddhist and the Catholic and the atheist. Just bringing awareness to that, just at a deeper level, just at a different answer, that's where we start to really expand things. Because usually when you say what you say, Lance, people will say, yeah, I completely agree with you. And we'd move on to the next question. Well, we've been moving on to the next question since the beginning of humanity, and we've never been so divided and conflicted. So I just want to bring awareness to consciousness. I want to bring awareness to just one layer deeper and just see what happens. I may be a lunatic. This may be the worst thing I've ever done in my life, and I may make 8 billion people worse off, but it hasn't been tried. And neutrality is not a thing. So let's see what happens.
So, Charlie, let me ask you something then. And this is, I think, what you're getting at, but I want to see if I'm right.
Okay.
The difference is we are dominated by our physical brain, and we're not allowing our mind to have the true power, because the mind is what our real consciousness is. It's not our brain. It's not the firing synapses. It's that whatever word you want to call, but it's your mind versus your brain. And that maybe is where the disconnect in the world comes from, because our brain is in the physical world, but our minds aren't. And if that's not right, feel free to say, nope, I'm out on a limb, which happens all the time.
You're not out on a limb. I'm just trying to figure out how to answer that in the best way possible. Because there's quite a few intelligent people in the neuroscience, surgeon that truly still believe the brain creates consciousness. Thinking the brain creates consciousness is like listening to your car radio and the band's going to be inside your car. There have been tens of millions of near-death experiences where there's no EKG, no brain synapses, no heart, everything. They're dead for 10, 20, 50 minutes. And they can tell you everything that happened with inside that surgical or at the car wreck. Consciousness is fundamental to our reality. Consciousness was there before the brain. Consciousness birthed the brain. Consciousness birthed the mind. It birthed our thoughts, right? What you're saying is correct. There's the physical brain that's just a filter. The mind is, in a sense, separate. It's being filtered through there. But both of those were created by consciousness. What you said about 15 minutes ago about how you don't know what KJ thinks, right? If you take a light and you shine it through a prism, it's going to refract 1 billion different rays of light. To our eyes, how this world's built, how our mind perceives things, we're going to see 1 billion different rays of light. They're going to be separate. One's going to go off that direction. One's going to go off that direction. One's going to go up. One's going to go down. But if you bring it back to the source, it's only going to be one. There's only one mind. There's only one consciousness. There's only one of us. It's the greatest illusion on the planet that we are separate. But like we said 20 minutes ago, the greatest maturity of an individual is they're okay with contradiction, but we are separate. And there's 3 individuals. One's in some weird hotel, apparently, KJ. You got Lance and you got Charlie, right? We are separate in how we're perceiving the world. So the brain and the mind only knows division. It only knows division. It only knows this or that. Our parents taught us, their parents before them taught us, pick a side, pick a God, pick a religion, pick a politician. If you're born in Utah, you're most likely red and Republican. If you're born up in the Northwest, you're most likely blue and a Democrat, right? The point is just bringing awareness to how divided this tool is, that our conditioning is so easily removed when we understand that we're just what we learned, what we're around, what our parents taught us. The main point is bringing it back down to consciousness, bringing it down to the source. Once we just start to
Charlie, let me ask you a question here.
Go ahead.
Oh, I don't know if you're familiar with Orson Scott Card. He's an author. He wrote Ender's Game.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite books. So I'll disagree because I love the book and the series so much.
Uh-oh, I lost him. Back on, Lance?
But okay, there we go. Did I come back on?
No,
okay.
No, I hear you. Yep.
So later on, one of the books is called Children of the Mind, and in it he about this connection, and he calls it a full. And remember, this is science fiction. He calls the Iowa is what he would call this, different spelling than the state, but interesting because in the book he's saying, or at least again it's a science fiction book, that we're all connected. Some connected more, some connected less. In your beliefs on consciousness, do you believe that there is a connection, whether if there is, like my connection to my dad is going to be a lot stronger than some random person who lives in China right now that I don't really know, but there is still a human connection? Or is that something that wouldn't make sense? Or I'm just curious, if there is do you believe there is an innate connection that we all have at, I'll say, the spiritual level or the conscious level? Or is that something that not really, it doesn't really play into your thought process or philosophy?
First of all, every sci-fi movie is just a coming attraction. Every sci-fi movie is just the construct we've been given it. You watch what happens in the next couple of years. Every one of those movies will be realistic, if not completely real. All of that shit's real. When you understand consciousness and you can tap into it, and you work with, like I work with, and I've spoken to a lot of remote viewers. You remember the CIA and the Stargate program, where they'd be able to sit here in Utah and they'd be able to tell you what's on a desk in Russia. So to your point of your connection, it's all connected. And there are individuals that when they get very talented, or they have an awareness, or they want to get good at remote viewing, they can check out other planets. They can check out what's in the other room. They could come to your room right now and tell you what's going on. That's a real thing. The governments do it all across the globe. It's
yeah, old school. It used to be called astral projection, correct?
Well, there's astral projection. There's astral projection. There's out of body experiences. There's a shit ton of stuff. But to your point, yes, you are more connected. You will have more of a connection to your dad, to your family, to people who are close to you, right? There's a great teacher that had a great analogy of an infinite river of consciousness. And you know how in a river there's whirlpools, and then all of a sudden the whirlpool just kind of dissipates? He says that's an incarnation. So when the whirlpool goes into that infinite river of consciousness, this whirlpool is going to pull in individuals. That's going to be your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your friends, KJ, me, right? I'm in your whirlpool right now, just to your point of like, we're an NPC, right? You got your own little whirlpool, you got your own little consciousness, and there's individuals. There's people in the grocery store, there's people in your neighborhood, there's people you love, there's people. Yes, you will have a much deeper connection to your dad, to your wife, to your kids than some random person in China, because they're not in your awareness. If they become in your awareness, guess what? They're coming near your whirlpool. You're going to have a more connection to them. But just like a single water that drops into an ocean, that little drop of water into the ocean is connected to another drop, and that drop's connected to another drop, and that drop's connected. Like it's all just one ocean. Now, in our mind, how we're built in this 3D realm with the very divided mind, those are all constructs. We talk about it like it's all going to change how happy we are because we're this infinite soul and it's all one and it's all love and everything's going to be fine after we die. Sweet. That's great. Can I get there sooner? Because I want to talk to my soul and wonder what in the hell he signed up for. Again, the maturity of an individual is they're okay with contradiction because that's all this life is contradiction. But to your point, yes, you're going to have a much stronger connection with your father and those closest to you.
Well, yeah, I think just the answer of that, there is that connection to everybody. I think that is lost in the world, is that no matter how slight that connection is, is that we are connected to people in some way, and not just people, but anything that has that spirit or soul or whatever, whether it's our pets, whether it's plants. Now, again, there might be an ant outside I'm connected to by, the most minute nothingness, but there's still that connection. And that's where I think that we sometimes, we kind of forget the value of just the life we're living. And that's kind of the downfall of when we don't recognize the life that we're living. And maybe that's why people, suicide is because they miss that. Well, I firmly, actually, I'm not guessing. I know that that's part of it, is they miss those connections. And so as we build those connections, I think that's truly where the value in this life are those connections. And to your point, as we have those connections, and consciousness, as our consciousness grows, those connections become easier and better because your judgment turns off when you become neutral, and it's easier to make a connection when you allow somebody to believe what they believe, and you don't come from a point of you're wrong and I'm right, and now we have that conflict.
Yeah, exactly. Expanded consciousness just makes you more neutral, and you don't give a shit if they're Catholic or atheist. You just don't. It doesn't become a thing of their identity. It just becomes, because this neutrality, this position in business and politics, it understands very firmly that it's not going to change anyone's opinion or change anyone's mind. And it's not meant to. That's neutrality. That's the great thing about this position. There's no manipulation. There's no, hey, I'm the nice guy, you should come join the Catholics. Hey, I'm a nice guy, you should come join the Republican Party. No. Neutrality.
First step on the journey to neutrality.
Manipulation. Just, you do whatever the hell you want to do. Legitimately do what the hell ever you want to do. Now we're back.
KJ, go ahead now.
Sorry, I lost both of you there for a second. What was the question?
Yeah, I was asking, what's the first step to neutrality and higher consciousness? Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we got the question that time. The first step is conversations like this. The first step is bringing awareness to what consciousness is. The first step is the metaphor of the fish swimming in the ocean. The first step is talking about neutrality. It's, again, truly listening to this conversation, because these questions are asked all the time, but I can promise you the way I answer them is a little bit differently than the way other people answer them, right? Just a subtle shift. The seed's always going to be planted to you guys. The seed's going to be planted to me. The seed's going to be planted to your listeners. The universe has an infinite amount of water. It's a great gardener. It'll just expand. That's how it begins.
KJ, I'm letting you go.
Man, nah, I am blown away, man. I am just, I'm about tapped out. So before we are, so here's a great way to kind of tie it off, because my mind is blown, man. The whole idea of consciousness and being able to of knowledge is just something tied up. So tell me more about your professional journey. Like, how does that everything we talked about, how does that make the organization better? How does that make our world better? How does that make society better?
So this position, the most important thing to discuss is what it's not. Because people hear consciousness, they think spirituality, they think a very small group of individuals, and they think of the wellness program that was crammed down their throat the last 20 years. Right here in the West, we've got a lot of atheists, a lot of Catholics, and a lot of Baptists. And as soon as they were asked to meditate, they referenced Buddhism, and they were completely turned off by it. Right? So let's make that damn clear. The Chief Consciousness Officer doesn't give a shit about that. It is not another part of the wellness program. The Chief Consciousness Officer, me in particular, and the people I'm helped train, so when companies start hiring this, they're going to be ready for it. They have a business background. They understand business lingo. They have an executive background as well, right? They can talk to them. They can understand structure. They can also understand that the business needs to be profitable with purpose. They need to treat their employees well, but they need to get shit done. It's not some spiritual individual that comes in and tells everyone to meditate and they think it's going to solve all the company's problems. That's not the case, right? This individual goes to the CEO and takes him from here to here. helps them with strategy. It helps HR hire different individuals, maybe hire consciousness individuals. Maybe marketing's stuck on marketing and they need some more creative ideas. Well, everything that marketing's been doing is right here in this little tunnel vision. You expand their awareness, they got better ideas for marketing. Sales thinks of new ways to sell. The main thing here too, though, is what's happened in the past with conscious capitalism, which is not consciousness, conscious leadership, conscious management. It's a 2 to 4 week program, maybe a 2-month program, right? Just for the executives. What about the other 10 months? And what about the other 90% of the employees? You think it leaks down? It doesn't. It goes to those executives, and if they don't understand it, if they don't have a level of consciousness to understand what they're being taught, do you think they can regurgitate it and reteach it to customer service, to middle management, to operations, to manufacturing? No. So what we've done is we've spent a small fortune on the 10 to 20 executives within an organization, and yeah, they feel a little bit happier. Maybe they go on a 10-day silent retreat or do some psilocybin. But to my question, business has never been more divided and conflicted. So the conscious capitalism, the conscious leadership, and the conscious management doesn't seem to be leaking down to the masses. This position is a full-time, 365-day a year, hanging out at the watering hole, helping customer service, helping management, talking to operations, talking to the financial officer, talking to marketing, talking to HR, talking to everybody, and bringing a culture of higher clarity to everyone at every level of the business. That is the drastic difference. Just like technology 30 years ago. Everyone knew technology was taking over. Everyone knew they needed a URL to be online, but not a single person within the company knew how to code. So they looked in the corner like, hey, let's go get those weird guys and girls and call them chief technology officers. Now it's a staple in the C-suite. Consciousness is becoming the central focus of humanity. So now, okay, hey, let's find some weird dudes that know how to talk about consciousness and have metaphors about fish. Hey, I'm right here. And there's a couple other people like me that are neutral too. You should start hiring us. This is a full-time position. This is the big change here. It's not a coach. It's not a consultant. It's not a 4-week program. It's day in and day out. Everything is consciousness. KJ, when you talk about your mind being blown and trying to figure things out, you were already consciousness. You were already tapped into it. Now you're aware of it. Now you have access to it. And the number one thing that I love to bring to everyone's attention, everything you've ever known, anything you've ever read, anything you've ever watched in the video, anything you've ever been taught, anything you've ever learned as a religion, anything you've ever been learned from politics. Knowledge is structured in consciousness. Every thought, everything you've ever learned is consciousness. You start to tap into that vast resource that those great authors, Paulo, the Alchemist, where do you think that came from? You think those are his original thoughts? Came from consciousness. They were just funneled through him, and he made a shit ton of money after it. Whatever our awareness points to, when we understand we're consciousness, we have access to any piece of knowledge we've ever wanted.
You know, it's funny as you're saying this, that you can say it to the top, you can say it to the bottom and all that. You just completely described a good chaplain in the Army, because we can say all the right things to the right people and it just stops. It doesn't go any further, and it is day in, day out trying to help these soldiers understand the point of this stuff. And the commanders go, yeah, chaplain, whatever. And the senior NCO, yeah, okay, chaplain. And there's those few that kind of go, oh, chaplain, yeah, I like that. So, man, I need to get into the chief consciousness officer game, because I think that would go right into my next career as I retire this summer. But hey, we're at about an hour. KJ, do you want to, Charlie, we try to keep it for an hour and we have to do a cutoff. If you want to stay on, you're more than welcome to, but we don't want to monopolize your time on a Sunday night. So we'll give you the last word here. And for those of you who want to stay on, please do. And KJ will get back to our normal two-sided unconsciousness arguments.
Oh, you guys need to meet a leaf so you guys can argue about the sides. Cool. Awesome. Thumbs up. See you later. I'm just kidding.
No, man. Hey,
well, it doesn't do any good. It doesn't do any good to talk politics when it's like, or we're going to talk about what happened in Colorado today, and that's definitely not consciousness. With what happened.
Well, hold on.
In Colorado.
Just for the hell of it, what happened in Colorado?
So they were having a kind of a peace walk with a Jewish peace walk, and there was a Muslim. Self-proclaimed Muslim Palestinian who modified some yard equipment, put gasoline in it and used it as a modified flamethrower and threw Molotov cocktails and severely burned 6 or more people because he didn't agree with what's going on in Palestine and Israel. And he said, if the Jews are going to kill my people, I'm going to kill them, even though the people in Colorado have absolutely nothing to do with it. And then the Colorado police turn around and go, we don't want to say that it was terrorism. That's too soon, even though the guy was yelling Allahu Akbar the whole time. So it becomes this idea of you can't condemn evil for being evil. And this, to me, goes back to truth. There is good and there is evil in this world. And when you don't call out evil for evil, then you're just allowing it to continue to exist. And people will say, well, you're evil. It goes back to the somebody's terrorist is somebody else's freedom fighter. And I say, no, good is good, evil is evil. And if you're out harming other people based on beliefs, you're wrong and you're evil, especially if you're murdering people because of their faith. Like, and same thing. I don't want anybody who's Jewish walking up to somebody who's Palestinian, or Muslim, and taking a gun out and pulling the trigger. That's just as evil. So,
which I completely agree with. But every religion's been doing that since the beginning of time, right?
For sure.
So to that lady's comment, one person's terrorist is someone else's freedom fighter. Now, when we talk about neutrality, I'll just make one more comment. I was talking to a lady that works with human trafficking, and she was listening to me like you guys are, and she was kind of starting to get agitated. And she's like, "Well, where's your neutrality with human trafficking?" I'm like, "That's pretty black and white. I'm not being neutral there. That's pretty bad. Like, that's terrible. Like, can you again, the individual's maturity is their okayness with contradiction." There's a lot of gray area in this world. There's a lot of things that we can bring to this discussion, like, yes, evil is evil, good is good. To the lady's point, it's a little bit of both when it comes to that, because one terrorist is someone's freedom fighter, etc. All religions, all Catholicism, all Mormons, all Muslims, we've all done, like all the stories we've seen in history, all sides have killed people over because their gods have been differently, right? So just bringing awareness to that, but then you come to a story here in Colorado, that's horrible. Absolutely horrible. It can be both. That's just absolutely horrible.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's when the woman you were talking about, that goes to the logical fallacy of going to the absurdum. You know, well, there's no such thing as good or bad, black or white. Yes, there is. It is bad to pull a gun out and shoot somebody in the head because you don't like them for whatever reason. That's why I laugh at things like hate crimes. Crime is never committed in the name of love. Mm-hmm. And that is bad. Hurting somebody is bad. And so neutrality for the rest of the time, sure, you're probably going to be, if you can practice, my guess is you would say you're going to hopefully practice neutrality 99.9% of the time. But for those truly black and white, yes, it's okay to say, this is wrong. I laugh at the moral relativism of when people say things like, who are you to judge me? I should be able to do whatever I want. I say, okay, let's test that. Go walk down the middle of the highway if you want to and see how that works out for you. Because everybody else is not going to be avoiding you if they're going down the freeway because you think you should be able to do it. If you truly believe in moral relativism, then you should have no problem with me coming over there and punching you directly in the face because I feel like I should be able to. Why can't I? So they're still good, they're still right, and they're still wrong. And I'm not even talking about laws. I'm talking about the moral good and bad. And if you're trafficking kids, or people talk about the death penalty. If somebody says to me, should a child molester, child pornographer and molester and producer get life in prison? I say, no, they should be castrated first and then thrown in jail, if not the death penalty. I'm more than happy with taking those people off the earth. So it's okay to have non-neutrality when non-neutrality is justified. But most of the time, I think it's fair to say that we can find a place of neutrality because those aren't the extreme examples.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. Well, boys, it's been a slice of heaven. I'll let you guys get back to arguing.
Hey, Charlie, it's been great. If you didn't have it up, KJ, do you want to hit that? There you go. Is that the right one? Or is it...
Any other ways they can reach you? Are you social?
I assume you guys will put it in the video notes. Just through my LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best. Lost you,
Brother, we
KJ.
definitely appreciate it.
Oh,
And
there we are.
man, the journey is just getting started. I can't wait to dive in some more, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, anything you guys need, any questions, anything your listeners want, let me know. Thank you guys for having me on. We'll see you later.
All right, Charlie, have a good one.
See you guys.
Well, I think we might have to have Charlie back in 6 months or a year or sooner. That was really, really interesting.
All right. Hold on.
I kind of believe a lot
Before
of
you
what he believes already. Say again.
over for the guys in CTR Media. If you guys are still with us, we did run over a little bit, but now we got to say goodbye. Hopefully, you guys will come and join us. You know where we are. We're on Twitch. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. Swing over and see us, and we'll catch you guys next week. For those of you guys that are following on CTR Media, I do apologize for running just a little bit over, but man, that interview was something special. I enjoyed every bit of it. Every bit of it. That was fantastic, bro. So, 4 minutes, 24 minutes in a world full of chaos. Where do you want to start?
Well, first we got to do something about your headphones, man. We're missing the first 2 or 3. So you need to start when you start talking. You need to go. I am going to now start my question because the audio is delayed. It's the weirdest thing. It's funny though that what Charlie was saying, I think really kind of goes into what we talk about almost every week, because we're talking about how do we find those win-win situations? What is it about what's going on in the world where it is one side or the other? The little does he know what we feel about federal politicians, which is we think they are pretty much horrible human beings that want nothing more than to stay in power. They are anything but neutral. They want to have their way so that they stay in power and they get all the benefits of that. And I would extend that again to even journalists. They want to push their worldview. You and I, yeah, I've got my worldview and you've got your worldview, but I'm trying to remember the last time I told somebody they were wrong on something that wasn't factual. It's different if you're like, hey, 2 + 2 is 5. No, that's factually wrong. Okay, so even with consciousness, and I think that's the neutrality goes so far, but when you have a black and white like 2 + 2 is 4, that's not neutral. That is good, right? That's something that I think most people can agree with. And when we're looking at what's going on in the world today, I have a real problem with the media not calling out the evil that is going on. The whole, like I said, the Colorado thing. But then just this over the weekend, you have Israel, who we all know the conflict in Gaza has been going on now for a year and a half. Israel has come out and they are pushing some aid into Gaza because despite what anybody thinks, Israel is not intent on side in Gaza. They are not there to wipe out I think we looked up the numbers last week or the week before. What was it? 7 or 9 million Palestinians that are living in Gaza. They are there to kill the leaders of Hamas, which they apparently achieved one of the top leaders, which is good. They are there to get back their hostages. And ultimately, they just kind of want, my opinion is Israel wants to be left alone to do Israel's things and not have to worry about a neighbor next door sending in suicide bombers and terrorists and all that. So, and you can have a different opinion. That's fine. If you don't believe that that's Israel's goals, that's fine. But they go in and they're doing aid. And during this aid distribution, shots start ringing out. And it ended up killing, I believe, 20 odd Palestinians and injuring 100 more. And the AP reported that it was the Israeli soldiers just opened fire on these Palestinians. It was picked up by the New York Times, by the Washington Post. All the normal players, they all came out and said, yep, that's exactly what happened. And as of about 4 hours ago, suddenly was retracted because these news organizations are listening to what is being put out by Hamas, and Hamas hasn't always been honest. Gasp. Who knew? And so it's starting to come out that it looks like Hamas was opening fire on their own people, which this is not the first time that has happened. And so I think it's really horrible, and we're going to see what happens. I don't know if this is because of what the U.S. is pushing as far as the peace deal. I know there's some hemming and hawing, the U.S. peace deal, which was trying to get a ceasefire, return the hostages. I believe it was only half of the hostages that are still alive back to Israel. And one of the things that's really interesting about this peace deal and the peace deals or exchanges that consistently happen, I think it's ironic, and Casey, tell me what your thought on this is. I think it's ironic when the Palestinians will sit and claim and scream about how the Jews think they're better than they are, and the Israelis and the Zionists are better. They treat us like nobodies, and we're not nearly as worth. And then they turn around and say, well, we'll give you the 10 hostages we have, but we want 1,000 prisoners in return. Well, didn't that just mean that every one Palestinian, one Jew is worth 100 Palestinians by your own math? And I think that's kind of funny because that happens over and over and over. And that right now is one of the sticking points of Hamas is saying, well, we're not going to do this because of the numbers that are involved. We want, and I believe they're saying for the 10 hostages that they will release, they want, I think it's 1,100 prisoners, including 125 odd that are currently serving life sentences in Israel for acts of terror and murder, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that it's really interesting to see how in the West this is being covered, A, and B, that it's not being called out for what it is, which is just pure propaganda and manipulation by Hamas and the Hamas media machine that the Western people are buying hook, line, and sinker. I just don't get it. No, I do get it. I just think it's crazy.
Well, it's difficult to find out what is the actual truth between all the propaganda that's coming out. It's nobody will tell you. Nobody who's ever experienced war will be heard the whistle of a bullet fly past their head will be an advocate of peace because it changed after that. So I in mind, I would think the Hamas government would want to do any and everything. It's just watching the videos of fighting over grain and you know what I'm saying, just basic necessities. It's
Hey, KJ, I think we need to I think we need to I think we need to kill it. You're unfortunately KJ is in a hotel, and so his Wi-Fi is cutting in and out. We're getting about one out of every 3 words from you. I don't know. Maybe that's my bad. Maybe it's my Wi-Fi that's going bad. It certainly has in the past. So I think we're going to call it for tonight. Thanks for joining us. We will be back next week. Fingers crossed. KJ will be on the road in his move. You're not going to hear the long story. I'll just tell you the short story because I asked KJ. He lost a bet for his beard. His daughter bet him that the Pacers would win Game 4 against the Knicks, and KJ was convinced it was going to go back to New York 2-2. His daughter was right. The Pacers and Oklahoma City in, I think, the greatest NBA final ever, simply because it is the situation that the NBA wants the absolute least. If you go back to the 90s, that's what they were scared of. They were scared of the Indiana Pacers because they were two of the smallest markets. And so now fast forward 25 years and it's Oklahoma City and Indiana. I love it. I'm not going to watch a lot of it, but I love it because I love new fresh blood. I don't like Boston win and LA every year. Some people are like that. I would have been fine with the Knicks because the Knicks haven't been in the finals. I don't know the last time the Knicks were in the finals. I know their last championship was in the 70s. So with that, we will be here next week at 8:30. KJ will hopefully be in a better situation with his Wi-Fi and his headphones, and I'll try to do a better job with my setup as well. Also, and this is something that's going to happen in a couple weeks, I'm going to be on a debate, and I will put that information out, but one of these online debates with Andrew from the Whatever podcast. We are going to be on a debate against each other, and I'm going to basically be defending my faith as the primer is Joseph Smith is a false prophet. So I will be defending that Joseph Smith was not a false prophet, the founder of the LDS faith, and it's going to be hosted by Sarah the Raging Tomato on Twitter. That's her call. But I hope you guys in a couple weeks want to go in and get some cross. Yeah, I know Sarah the Raging. I didn't know who this was, but if you want to follow somebody on Twitter, it's great. She is a moderator for these debates. They're actually doing a debate right now. I don't see what the primer is, but Sarah the Raging Tomato. And until next week, 2 POGs, same POG time, same POG channel. Safe travels to KJ. Liberty, thanks for being on with us tonight, and everybody else who's watching, and we will see you next week.
Gee, Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world.
Preaching freedom
Try
of
to
gospel.
take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.